Okay, we have Bill's machine running right now. You can see it's running at 4.2 volts. Optimum is 5. We're putting 5 off on the power supply right now. But by the time that voltage drop in the wire down to 4.2 and we're 19.4 amps, 20 amps is optimum. We've got pressure on this side going up fast. So they just shut off at the valve, no tank, so you can actually see it climbing. Slowly, but it's climbing. And then, of course, this valve here is after the check valve on the outside going to the tank. This gauge here is in the cell itself. Now, it'll shut off when it gets to 200. And on the oxygen side, well, the oxygen's got a lot more volume to fill right now, so it's lower. But it's completely shut. So the oxygen is coming up from the cell. Okay, the oxygen is coming up from the cell up here into this chamber where the water and air are separating. And the oxygen is coming out here. Here it hits the gauge. Here it comes across over into the regulator. Now the regulator's got this side completely closed off right now. So nothing is escaping. It's all being backed up in the tank. And over here, we've got the oxygen line coming out. I got a valve on it for testing, but we don't want it. Normally we don't want to shut that off. And you'll see there's no gas coming up out of it yet. So any oxygen coming through the system, it's going to bubble up through this water. And right now, the regulator is working 100% and closing off the oxygen outlet altogether. It's not letting any oxygen go. And its pressure is going to continue to build until it gets to the same pressure as the hydrogen. And then it's going to start releasing oxygen. And we will see those bubbles coming up in that cup of water. So here we've got the sight glass I brought on the outside. We've got lifting handles. I got a bracket to hold the pipe steady. We have the pump switch, so we can turn the pump on or off. Right now it's in auto mode, so whenever it's needed it will run. If you turn it off, it won't run at all, but in the auto mode it'll run. Then we got the low water alarm that'll sound the buzzer, the red light will flash, and the cell will stop running until we put water in. If you get tired listening to the buzzer, you can disable it or enable it to let you know. This switch 0 is off, 1 is AC, and 2 is the solar panel. Okay, so that's the inside of the door. I better shrink that down, any. And that valve is the water line coming in from the makeup tank on the back, in case we need to shut it for any reason. There is a check valve here. Here's where the sight glass is connected, here and here. This is a mistake here. This tube coming below the top of this is causing water or air to be trapped in the sight glass, so we don't get a true reading. This has to be replumbed, and we can't have any dip in it. It has to go up and over, not down. So that was a mistake. This is the solar regulator. It's an MPPT type. This with the display down there is the digital temperature control. And it's got a little sensor right there. It comes up here. And by pushing the 3 buttons on this thing, you can actually set what temperature you want it to come on. And when it hits a certain temperature, these fans, these large fans will come on, and it's blowing pretty much right on the cell. Okay, and then the air is circulating around the whole panel, and then in the back, you probably can't see it too good, right up there, there's the same size vent behind the panel. So the air has to go around the panel, cooling everything in order for it to get out. So up here we have this black strip bus right there in the middle. That's the shunt for the gauges, for the meters. So these meters need that shunt it comes across the negative side, and well, we just hit pressure and it shut off. I just heard it click. So that pressure switch just shut it down. So now we're waiting to see what happens. We're up close to 200 psi. That pressure switch just to click, and you can see the amps are 0. There's no more. We're not making anything right now. The voltage spikes up, but that's fine. The cell will bring it down to 5 volts when it engages again. And you can see that our power supply says 11.8, but as soon as that cell engages, it'll drop back down there close to 5. So here the hydrogen came out of the cell on this tube here. It comes into this group of T's and elbows. And then we get the pressure on the hydrogen side. So here's the pressure switch for the hydrogen side. It's non-adjustable. It's preset. Kick off at 200, kick in at 175. This line here goes to the relief valve on the back. So if the pressure valve doesn't shut, pressure switch doesn't shut the system off, the relief valve will pop in the back and make a racket and let you know what's going on. All the AC right here, 110 volts, is all insulated. There's no exposed wiring for 110 volt at all. I put a ground strip on the cabinet, so the cabinet is grounded, and the ground coming in from the power cable is also grounded to the cabinet, and also we're grounded to the power supply, and we have one more ground right here off the cell coming into the ground strip. So the plumbing is grounded, the power supply is grounded, and the case is grounded, all grounded. So we'll be nice and safe. Put a bunch of labels on this thing. I got our patent number and all that good stuff. Let's see. And on this side, okay, we have a place for the solar panel power. These cables go in this hole for the solar panel. Over here, we've got the 110 volt outlet. It's just like on a computer. You know, you can unplug that, and this is on or off for AC. And there's a fuse in here too, so the AC is fused. We got hydrogens coming out up here, and we got a check valve there, and we got our pressure gauge. And right now you just got a shut-off valve right there. Let's go take a look around the back now. Okay. Sneak around through the dining room. There we go. So let's start over here. Here is in the back side. We have the main water reservoir, the makeup water reservoir. It's non-pressurized. Overflow can just spit out this thing here. Water's coming down this feed line into this pump. We were able to turn the pressure up on a pump to actually get it to go to 200 pounds. Comes out here and we see it on a valve on the other side. This line here is the water return from the hydrogen side. So if any water accumulates on the hydrogen side, it will come back in here, back into the tank and be recycled. And this is the relief valve I just told you about on the other side. That will pop off at 250 psi. And of course, I had to improve the casters on here because the ones that came on it were attached to the bottom and they just collapsed. They didn't work at all. So now, the thing has just stopped and paused. It appears to be holding pressure. Looks like it's going down a little bit. I think it looks about same on both gauges. So oxygen has not caught up. So if I bleed off some hydrogen, and it'll probably the oxygen probably catch back up pretty quick. So we can see what happens if we drop a little bit of hydrogen off. And as we do that, if it drops below a certain point, we'll see oxygen bubbles coming up. We sort of kick back on, kick on. And I'm slowly bleeding it off. Too much. That's what happens when you let too much hydrogen out. It releases the oxygen instantaneously, to equal the hydrogen pressure. So, bam, go down real quick. So, and so now you see the oxygen had dropped down to about 35 pounds, and it was the hydrogen exactly. So when I dropped that hydrogen below the oxygen, it automatically dumped the oxygen incredibly fast, so it would be always in balance. Now it's running now, it's building back up now. The displacement on the oxygen side is much larger right now than on the hydrogen side, so they don't come up evenly. But once we got it attached to the tank, the storage tank, it'll work in balance perfectly, because the storage tank will have much more displacement than the oxygen. And even though the oxygen is coming off half as much as the hydrogen, it will eventually catch up, and there'll be stable pressures continuously. So when it's hooked up on a tank, you should never see the hydrogen higher than the oxygen. It's only happening now because of the displacement we have. And just heard the fan kick on and the power supply cooler. And so she's running again now. She's making more hydrogen and oxygen. Now it's up to 21.7 amps. It appears as it warms up, it will draw more amps when it gets happy, when it's warm. Don't see any water leaks in here, so we're looking good there. We hydro pressure tested the whole system, so I flooded the whole system with water and brought it up to 250 psi until we popped the relief valve on the back. And it was watertight, so everything held water and looked good. But of course, you know, hydrogen is much smaller than water, so we did have a bunch of little leaks that we had to fix here and there. And we are using Blue Monster leak detector. And we just paint that around the fittings, and you see they're stained blue right now from testing. And we watch for little bubbles coming up, and then we know where to go. So there we have it. We have a running hydrogen machine producing and looking good. So yeah, blue water all over the place when I open the valve too much. There you have it.